Mr. and Mrs. Odia lived in one of the outskirts of Lagos. They were a very respected couple in that area, especially as Mr. Odia was a very staunch member of the Tenants Association. He played some very crucial role in that association. The roles he played made it necessary that he interacts with many of the residents in the community. Mr. Odia attends a local church in the community. In that church, he holds a very prominent position. He chairs a number of committees in the church. The role he plays in the church also gives him plenty of visibility. Anytime the church wants to hold any important activities, sees Mr. Odia in the forefront. He was also a very prosperous businessman. He owns a number of warehouses in a number of cities around the country and was very comfortable. What about Mrs. Odia, you may want to ask? Mrs. Odia was also a very prominent woman leader in society. She had over time helped some families in the area in many ways. She and her husband attend the same church, which was just a few distance from their home. She herself was a prominent person in that church. So both of them hold some very key positions, and they are known to be prominent. They are known to be very important in that church. In the business world, she was a very staunch businesswoman as well. They were said to be a well-to-do couple by any stretch of the imagination. But there is a problem. And that problem is that they don't have a child, which is quite unfortunate. They've been looking for children all this while, but they've not been able to get one. The unfortunate thing is that they were becoming aged, they are becoming advanced in age. And especially for women, there comes a time it becomes difficult, if not impossible, for them to give birth to a child. So that is where Mrs. Odia became very, very worried. Another problem is that relatives were beginning to complain about their childlessness. And the African people, the African relatives, parents, and what have you, have a way of complaining if their child is not giving birth yet to any children. It's not only that. In spite of the number of assistance they are rendering to people in society, some people were still mocking them that they don't have a child. And these things are beginning to get into the nerves of Mr. and Mrs. Odia. They don't even know what to do again. Odia, as a devout Christian, was not bothered. He believes that God's time is the best. She continued to tell her wife that she should take it easy, that God's time is the best. But she would not want to hear that. As far as she is concerned, something had to be done, and quick too. Because like we said before, age was not on her side. So the husband kept reassuring her that this matter is not in the hands of man, that they should put their trust in God. At least that is what every Christian of substance is supposed to do. Put your trust in God. When the appointed time comes, the Lord will do it. That was what Mr. Odia was always telling the wife. In the course of time, she had seen a number of doctors and specialists to see if they can be of any assistance. But in spite of the assurances given to her by these medical personnel, there was still no show. Things have not worked out the way she expected. She has even gone to a number of prayer houses to see how they can assist her. But all was in vain. Nothing has happened. For whatever reason, nobody can tell. But she has continued to go from place to place to see what she can do about this issue. But nothing seemed to be working. The couple have tried the spiritual path, but it seems that nothing is working from this angle. They've tried various churches, they've tried various men of God. Some men of God who were acclaimed powerful have been involved in their case. But it will appear that these things are not just working. Eventually, people and specialists began to advise them on what to do. They gave them a number of alternative solutions to their issue. They looked at all the options because there were a number of options that were given them. They looked at all the options and decided on one which they considered safe enough. And that option has to do with marrying another woman to help them bear a child. It was even the wife that suggested this option. They now began to search for the best person to do this, because that option involves their having to look for a woman or a young lady who can conveniently agree to do it. They felt that those in the villages are more manageable. So they went to the village for a search of the best woman to use. They also were told that in the villages, the elders will be involved and the arrangements will carry more weight, since it's going to involve both the elders, the parents, and the lady herself. That was where a young lady called Nkiru came into the scene. An 18-year-old girl was recommended to them by some elders in the village. And they felt that since the elders were involved, that things would be reasonable. Nkiru was said to be very industrious and easygoing. She was born and bred in the village. A tradition was that she has to be married, as we will do other girls who are really getting married. That was the tradition. In spite of the fact that she was not really going to be your wife, but the lady has to be married in a regular way. The only difference is that there will be no gathering, there will be no fun fair that follows the traditional wedding. But every other thing follows along the same line. They will tell you what to buy, they will tell you what to do, they will give you a list of the expenses you have to make, and these things will be done. Then you now enter into an agreement with the elders and the parents of the girl before eventually it is concluded. So when they came to the village, they told the elders what they had in mind, and the elders called the parents of Nkiru and Nkiru herself, and they agreed. Eventually, an agreement was entered between all the parties involved. But whether this agreement is going to hold water is an issue for another discussion. Although it was not known to be an illegal agreement. But some lawyers said that it has not been fully covered by the laws of Nigeria. But whatever it is not illegal. Another thing, another agreement in this kind of association is that the child to be born by that woman has to belong to the Odias. Once he gives birth to the child belongs to the individuals who came or who brought up the idea. Nkiru was supposed to be a temporary mother. After some time, she was to leave the child behind and go. On the other hand, she has to remain at the background if she agrees to do so. But the fact remains that the child eventually becomes that of the people that came for the arrangement. It was a very complicated deal. But like we said before, the deal is not illegal. So after the marriage, or what I choose to call arrangement, Nkiru was eventually brought to Lagos. She was fully aware of her role. She was told point blank that, look, lady, once you get this child, the child belongs to that woman and man. The child is yours as long as you remain there for some time to bring them to maturity. But once that is done, you are gone. Some people will not even allow the lady to be there for long. The fact is, immediately the child is given birth to, she hands it over to the supposed owners and goes away. The arrangement has some beneficial effects on the biological mother, but that is not what we are here to discuss. Nkiru has seen one of her friends, Ndidi, go through the same process a few years back. So she was not a stranger to this type of arrangement. After a few years, Ndidi came back home after completing her assignment. Ndidi eventually got a real marriage after that and now lives happily with her husband and 3 children in one of the big cities in the country. Nkiru knew about this and was ready to go into it. So when she came to Lagos, Mrs Odia tried to be very nice to Nkiru. She went with her to the market and bought her a number of clothes and other wares to make her look presentable and happy. Nkiru began to act like a very humble and a hardworking girl that she was back in the village. She did not try to change. She continued to be as hardworking as she was in the village. She took to doing most of the house chores and the cooking which she was doing in the village. Cooking was one of the acts that any girl that was brought up in the village was good at doing. But Nkiru was exceptionally good in cooking. She cooks anything. It is said that she could get nothing from the market and cook something out of it. That is to tell you how versatile she was in cooking. Her mother had always told her that the easiest way to a man's heart was through a highway called cooking. She had taken that into heart and had learned a lot about how to cook. Her mother therefore tutored her very well in the art of cooking. When it comes to cooking, talking seriously, Nkiru had no rival. She was a very good cook. By the time she finishes cooking for you, you'll be licking your fingers. She had eventually given herself one promise, and that is that if anybody was going to find a fault with her in the area of marriage, that fault does not have to come from cooking. So she learned a lot about cooking, and really she could find her way into a man's heart through cooking. And true to type, Nkiru did not disappoint. Very soon, Mrs. Odia began to introduce her to some of her business outlets. She felt it was necessary for her to get used to the business she was doing, because she wanted to take her as one of her own. When Mrs. Odia discovered that she was good in the ones she was getting her to handle, Mrs. Odia decided to make her manage a particular arm of her business. Before long, Nkiru was to become pregnant and eventually gave birth to a baby boy. This was followed in quick succession by another baby boy, and the Odias were very happy over that. They were so happy they threw a very big party to welcome the children as she was giving birth to them. The party was well attended by people in the community. Their house was very, very cold before, but now their house has become a beehive of activities, and they were very happy about it, because that was what Mrs. Odia had always wanted. She had been disturbed by seeing her neighbors being welcomed by their children once they come back from somewhere, and nobody was welcoming her. So she was very bitter about it. But with the arrival of these children, her thinking changed. Nkiru did not protest the action when Mrs. Odia began to treat the children as her own children. She knew that was the arrangement. If she was going to breach the agreement at all, she did not show it. Nkiru was still acting as the innocent girl she was when she was brought from the village. She was still cooking very well and doing most of the work around home, just the way she started. She did not change. The whole atmosphere was still serene. There were no troubles, no quarrels. They had no disagreements at all. And Mrs. Odia was very happy about it. When she was doing business on the streets of Lagos, it was inevitable that Nkiru could make friends. Nobody told her not to make friends. But she had to be careful. She was warned that Lagos is a very, deep place. Like they used to say, you have to shine your eyes in Lagos. But whether Nkiru shined her eyes very well will be determined by subsequent events. One of the persons she made friends with was a lady called Bosse. Bosse was a typical Lagos woman. She was born and brought up in Lagos. Is a real Lagos mama. She had 3 children. All of them came from different fathers. In fact, people said that she doesn't even know the man who had the third child. But all the children were with her. Like we said before, she was a typical Lagos girl. She was always having parties to attend. Every weekend must be a party. How she gets these parties, we don't know. When she had Nkiru's case, they've become friends, and Nkiru has told her everything about herself. She began to advise Nkiru negatively. She will always tell Nkiru, say, look, Nkiru, this is Lagos. Here you have to shine your eyes. At your age, person not supposed to dey treat you like say you be mugu. How you go born pikin? Person go say no be you get the pikin. This na Lagos, shine your eyes. If you don't shine your eyes, then go use you take play. Then go use you take play ball. So shine your eye very well. If you don't know what you go do, now you sabi. I don't talk my own finish. Just let me know if you need my assistance. I go introduce you to guys. We go take care of you very well. No mind those people, I beg. Just tell me anytime you're ready. I go introduce you to people wey matter. Not be this one so. Meanwhile, Bosse has concluded arrangements with a guy around town, in whose place she plans to spirit Nkiru to. Knowing fully well that Nkiru was a very naive type. He doesn't know much about Lagos. She's just come from the village. Meanwhile, she has taken her own course from that guy. Well, like they used to say, just shine your eye, nobody send you message. If at Nkiru's age, she cannot know what is good for her, that is very unfortunate. It was her naivety that Bosse played upon and helped get her out of the Odias family's house. Having listened to Bosse and a few other, friends telling her how she was wasting her life in Odias' place, Nkiru became confused. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know whom to listen to. She was thrown into two minds. Was she to listen to tradition, or forget about the tradition and damn the consequences and follow her own way? He was confused. He doesn't know what to do really. There was, however, one snag, and that snag was her children. While she was thinking of how to escape from that place, she was considering her children. Is she going to take the children away? Was she going to take the children away? If she takes the children away, will she not be breaking the law? So what are the consequences if this happens? By thinking to take her children along, she had put the whole arrangement into jeopardy. She may be committing a crime if she decides to carry out her plan with those children involved. She thought. The Odias may not bother if she just disappears without the children. But the problem comes if she decides to take the children away. And that is where it's going to be difficult. Because she herself doesn't even want to leave her children behind. She had heard stories of mothers who left their children behind, and the consequences were not very palatable. It is not very clear if she understands the implication of what she was thinking of. But whether she understands or not will soon be made clear as time goes on. Because her one thought now was on escape. Just let her escape. She has now come to add her children into the whole thing. And that will make the whole arrangement very tricky. She kept thinking that she may be breaking a law if she does that. But at the same time, she cannot live without the children. And then the tranquility that once pervaded the house was broken up. It just blew up. Everything became scattered. Nkiru was no longer quiet. She was no longer the innocent girl that came from the village. She used to be very industrious at home, doing all kinds of chores in the house without being told by anybody to do it. But she suddenly became something else. And the Odias were beginning to notice the change. Ordinarily, when Mrs. Odia talks to her, she never tried to respond or talk back, not to talk of being rude to her. But things were beginning to change. Ordinarily, she does not ask a simple why from the words of Mrs. Odia. Once she is told to do something by Mrs. Odia, she goes ahead to do it. She doesn't ask questions. Nor does she even have the guts to look her eyeball for eyeball. But all that have now changed. She was beginning to act in a very irresponsible manner. She doesn't seem to bother anymore. Things got to a head when Mrs. Odia asked her a simple question about a misplaced key. Nkiru flared up and began to tell her many unprintable things. Mrs. Odia was taken aback because she had not seen Nkiru behave like that before. What could have got into her? She began to think. But the more she thinks, the more confused she becomes. Because here was a lady that was very, very accommodating and very respectful. Why has she suddenly become so irresponsible? But she could not get an answer to all her questions. At that point, it had become obvious that Nkiru was planning something. Also, Mrs. Odia thought. In their inner discussions, Mr. and Mrs. Odia began to wonder why Nkiru had suddenly become so wild. What could have gone wrong? They asked themselves, but the more they ask, the less answers they get. It never occurred to them that she was planning an escape. Even if it had occurred to them, maybe they won't even be bothered. Because they wouldn't have been thinking, or they wouldn't have thought that she would take the children along. It would have been a case of good riddance to a bad rubbish if she had gone away herself, alone. But to add the children to the disappearance would be something else. They were just focused on the sudden change in behavior without thinking of the fact that she could just disappear with the children. At that point, Nkiru had concluded arrangement with Bosse and the man Bosse introduced to her. It happened that the guy has even rented a place where she's going to stay as soon as she leaves the Odias place. And it was in one of the remotest parts of Lagos where nobody would care to look for her. The next day, Mr. Odia called everybody together to find out exactly what is really wrong. To find out from Nkiru what exactly her problems are. But Nkiru would not just respond. And since he was not ready to respond, Mr. Odia decided to let her go for that day, thinking that maybe tomorrow she will be able to talk to her again and get her response to his questions. In Mr. Odia's mind, maybe she was just going through some stress occasioned by the quarrel she had with Mrs. Odia yesterday. So he thought he should give her some time and maybe call her again tomorrow to find out what the problems were. Unknown to them, Nkiru had already packed her things, put them together, and was ready for a chance to escape with the children. That night, Nkiru picked up her bags because she had already arranged her bags, put everything in her bags. She picked up those bags, carried the children, and vanished into that Lagos night. How she did it, nobody knew. But I mean, it was easy to do. It is said that most of the time, those who are committing crime are usually a step ahead of those who are trying to prevent it. They were not to know of this escape until early next day. In the morning, her room remained closed, or the door to her room remained closed. Ordinarily, she comes out at about 5-6 o'clock in the morning to do some cleanup. Because she herself, Miss Odia herself, wakes up very early. The moment she comes out, she will see her doing all those things. And they will greet and in a very pleasant manner. But she came out this morning and saw nobody. The doors were locked. I mean, the doors to her room were locked. She was not around. So she got suspicious. She did not have it at the back of her mind that she would have escaped. She was just curious. Why would anybody who wakes up 5 o'clock every day decide not to be out by this time? So she just went to the door, gave the door a little shove, and the door just sprang open. I mean, the door moved open inwards. So she went in, she stepped in a little, and by the time she peeped through, she saw that the house was in a terrible state. Everything was scattered in the house. It gave her the impression that whoever it was left that place in a hurry. So she quickly went to her husband to tell her that this is what she noticed. At that point, it did not even occur to her to check the children's room. She just went straight to the husband's room. I mean, to the room she is sharing with her husband, and called his attention to what has happened or what she had seen. Eventually, Mr. Odia went with her to the place to see what she was talking about. She got there and discovered the same thing. She had packed most of her clothes, and the room was in a scattered state. Then something occurred to Mr. Odia to check the children's room. Again, that room was open. There was nobody on the children's bed. They were devastated. That was when they realized that the children too were gone. We were both surprised at the development, not knowing what to do at that point. Then Mr. Odia immediately began to make series of calls. At least to find out if she were in certain places. But where would that be? She had not really introduced her to most of her relatives around town, except one or two. So they are the ones he tried to call to find out if she was there. But he told himself that, she had no reason to go there. There is no basis for her to run away from home because he has not been really annoyed with her. They have not, crossed words. At least not with him. The only thing he knew is that she had some disagreements with the wife. But was that enough reason for her to leave the way she did? Mrs. Odia felt very bad at the sudden development. She felt betrayed, knowing that her neighbors are going to, start making fun of her. They are going to start making mockery of her. One thing is clear, those children are going to be found, and quickly too, no matter what it takes. At least that was the thinking of Mrs. Odia. She stood there looking into space. Her dream of becoming a mother was gradually dying. Her dream of becoming a mother was just slipping away. Where do they have to start from? She asked. What will she do? She asked. She kept asking questions, but nobody was responding to her questions. Nobody was replying her. She stood there, continually looking into space, not knowing what to do. Having listened to this story, what advice do you have for Mr. and Mrs. Odia? If you have listened and you like the story, please like it, share it, subscribe, and leave your comment on the comment section of this video. Thank you so much for listening.